Disclaimer: I doesn't claim any of the arts. All the picture shown belongs to the respective artist and company. If you are original owner and want me to remove the video, I will do it immediately. Just send me an email to inform me. And if you liked my content, please subscribe to the channel. Chapter begins and we see Luca walked. He remembered Ile. Ile was always smiling. He seemed unafraid. I always felt worried around Ile, Luca thought. What if Ile fought against the Empire? He didn't want to think about it, but now he had to. Luca came out of the tunnel. He saw a terrible sight. The dining hall was full of blood. Soldiers were dead on the floor. Ile stood on the table. A dim light shone on him. Luca spoke calmly. Ile. Ile turned around. His face was hard to read. So you came, Luca. Luca looked at the dead soldiers. You did this, Ile. You let your men die for your own reasons. He looked at the group behind Ile. There were 5 people. 2 had guns. 1 was a woman. Luca frowned. Viggo Ramones is here. He's the boss of the Ramones family. Lillian is here too. Luca was angry because of the woman. Ile pulled out his sword. It gleamed in the light. I know you can't ignore this. He held the sword and a gun. His voice was cold. Fight, Luca. Luca breathed out. He pulled out his own sword. I'm gonna make you see sense, Ile. Ile stayed on the table. Luca stood still. They both held their swords. Dead soldiers were all around. Luca held his sword tightly. I have to fight Ile. I should win if I'm careful. But fighting is unpredictable. He saw the Ramones family leaving. 2 guards were with them. Luca's heart beat fast. I can't beat Ile quickly. He'll keep me busy while the Ramones family escapes. He made a decision. I'll kill them first. Ile will hate me for killing Lillian, but at least I won't have Ile's blood on my hands. Ile spoke. Luca, you're going after Lillian, right? Ile shot at Luca. Luca jumped to the side. He ran at Ile. His eyes were full of anger. Ile jumped off the table. He ran beside Luca. He aimed his gun. Luca thought fast. A gun can't stop me. Ile isn't trying to kill me. He just wants to slow me down. I've made myself faster. He can't stop me with those bad shots. Ile shot again. Luca didn't stop. He got closer to the guards. The guards pointed their guns. They looked serious. Ile shouted, "Get away from him." The bullet flew past Luca. Luca reached the first guard. He cut the man in half. Blood went everywhere. Ile's shot almost hit Luca. Luca hit the bullet with his sword. The bullet hit the second guard. It went through his head. The guard fell down, dead. Now there were 3 people left. The Ramones family stood before Luca. They were trapped and scared. Dio Ramones hid behind the others. Lillian stood in front. Viggo and his wife shouted, "Wait!" Luca's sword went through Viggo's face. Blood came out of his nose and mouth. He shook. Luca killed Viggo's wife too. Luca's eyes were red. He looked crazy. Lillian saw her parents die. Luca held his bloody sword. He was going to kill her. Now only Lillian Ramones is left, Luca thought. I can kill her before Ile stops me. Lillian Ramones was nice to me. I'll feel bad for killing her. He held his sword tightly. I'll make it quick. That's all I can do. He looked blank. He moved forward. He raised his sword. Then he saw Lillian. She was smiling. Tears were on her face. But she was laughing. Luca stopped. He didn't understand. She's laughing. A voice shouted, "Luca." Ile crashed into Luca. He knocked Luca away from Lillian. Lillian stepped back. She gasped. Luca was on the ground. He blocked Ile's sword. The swords hit each other. Sparks flew. Luca growled, "Ile, did you see her? She's laughing because her family died." Blood ran down Ile's face. He didn't say anything. Then he spoke. That's not surprising. His voice was calm. Her family was bad to her. They just wanted her to marry someone important. Luca couldn't believe it. What? He punched Ile. Ile stepped back. What are you talking about, Ile? Luca shouted. Ile knelt down. He held his chest. He still held his sword. Luca wiped blood off his face. Stop defending her. She's just a traitor. Ile looked up. Luca, you don't understand. The Empire wants to get rid of those families. They never did anything wrong. Lillian stood next to Ile. She touched his arm. Think about it. Their defenses were weak. They wouldn't have been so weak if they were really fighting the Empire. They would have asked Cora or Bellato for help. Luca felt uneasy. He didn't say anything. He's right. It was easy to get into the fortress. 3 families were supposed to be planning treason, but they didn't have many soldiers. They should have asked Cora or Bellato for help. Those groups would want to hurt the Empire. So what? Luca said. Even if that's true, what does it matter? Ile, you're going to die with Lillian Ramones. Lillian held Ile's arm. She looked at Luca. She spoke. My father was not innocent. Ile frowned. Lillian, not now. She ignored him. He hid an arcane relic. Lillian took out a small metal cube. It was the same thing the paladin had held. The Empire wants this, that's why they came after our family. It let us use the fortress. Luca's voice was sharp. Why are you telling me this? Lillian looked at Luca. You didn't want to kill me because you felt guilty. You didn't want Ile to hate you, right? Luca was shocked. He didn't answer. Lillian looked at Ile. Ile can't be free in the Empire. She stepped closer to Luca. She held the cube. We can all be free. This can turn on the teleporter hidden in the fortress. Luca was surprised. He looked at the cube. He tried to understand what was happening. Help us escape the Empire, Luca. Luca couldn't speak. Luca stood still, staring at the thing Lillian held. Behind them, the dead bodies of Vigo Ramones and his wife, Ile, were lying on the cold floor. Ile was sitting close by, still holding his hurt stomach and breathing hard. Without looking up, Luca spoke, his voice steady but full of doubt. A machine that can move you somewhere else? Lillian nodded. Yes, there's one deep inside the tunnels. It was probably made as a way to escape if the fortress was captured. If you think I'm lying, then just kill me. I don't want Ile to die trying to protect me either. But if we use this magic item to turn on the machine, Ile and I can finally get away from the Empire. She took a step closer, her voice firm. All you have to do is say you never saw us. Luca narrowed his eyes. Do you really think the Empire would just leave a machine like that out in the open? Lillian sighed. Only the Ramones family knows about this secret path. If we go deep enough underground, we'll be safe. Luca clenched his jaw, not sure what to do. I'm thinking about it, he thought, his fingers twitching as he thought hard. I don't care if Lillian lives or dies, but I need to think about what's best for Ile. He's always wanted to lead the Empire, and his crazy ideas will get him killed someday. But here, in a battle, it's easy to say someone died or disappeared. After a long pause, Luca breathed out and reached for his sword, slowly putting it back in its sheath. Ile was confused and tried to speak. Luca, but... Before he could finish, Luca cut him off. Be quiet, Ile. Just promise me one thing. If the teleport machine isn't there or doesn't work, then don't get in my way. You heard her. Even she doesn't want you getting into trouble. Ile's eyes widened in surprise. He turned to look at Lillian, searching for answers. Lillian looked back at him, her face unreadable. Ile bit his lip, with emotion swirling in his eyes. Then, after a long silence, he spoke. I promise, Luca. Luca took the lead, gun in hand, moving carefully. Lillian followed close behind, with Ile guarding the rear, his own weapon raised. They stayed alert, making sure no one was following them. After a short distance, Luca raised his hand, signaling them to stop. I've really lost it, he thought. Not only am I not stopping Ile, but I'm also guarding Lily and Ronus. If any other soldiers see this, we're done for. Teleport machine or not? Hold on. Luca, Lillian called from behind. Luca turned, looking annoyed. Lillian held a piece of cloth and gently wiped the blood from Ile's face. Let me clean you up before the blood dries, she said softly. Ile sat still, his expression blank, though his body trembled from exhaustion and pain. Luca sighed, closing his eyes in frustration. If you two actually make it out alive, why don't you just get married or something? He muttered. Lillian paused, lowering the cloth to her chest. Her hands trembled as tears welled up in her eyes. I'm sorry, Ile, she whispered. I didn't think things would end up like this. Ile softened as a small, tired smile formed on his lips. It's all right, he murmured. You were the one who taught me about the world outside. Lillian's expression darkened. Just for that small reason? Ile chuckled weakly. It's not small to me. It changed the way I see the world. Thanks to you, I was finally able to find the source of my frustration. Ile continued, his voice soft yet firm. If it weren't for you, I would have lost my mind a long time ago. You made me realize that I'm not weird, just different. Luca stood still, watching the two of them. Lillian, she's the one who planted the seeds of Ile's rebellion. These thoughts spread like a disease, infecting others, weakening the Empire from within. If these dangerous ideas are allowed to spread, the Empire will collapse. No, before that even happens, Bellata or Korra will take advantage of our division and attack first. I don't want the Empire to fall. His fingers curled into a fist. If necessary, I must eliminate threats with my own hands, even if that threat is Ile. A shiver ran through his body. Luca clenched his jaw and gripped his own arm. "I'm not a traitor," he told himself. Yet despite the conviction in his thoughts, his hands wouldn't stop shaking. As they walked deeper into the tunnel, Luca took a deep breath before exhaling sharply. "Phew, we can catch a break now." Lillian, exhausted, bent forward slightly, resting her hands on her knees as she tried to steady her breath. "I told you, this is a route only we know. They won't be able to find us easily. It's a maze. My father never reported anything, even though he received permission to study the ruins. He had ambitions that were too big for him. When he figured out how to activate the fortress, he thought he was in control. But in the end, everything remained in the Emperor's hands." Luca glanced at her before asking, "More importantly, how much farther do we need to go?" Lillian straightened herself and pointed forward. "It should be just up ahead in this corridor." Then, after a pause, she added, "Thank you, Luca, for helping me and Ile." Luca's expression remained cold. "I'm just repaying a debt to Ile. Next time we meet, you're dead." He turned to Ile and added, "Anyway, stay safe, Ile." Ile hesitated for a moment. "Luca," Lillian shifted her gaze toward Ile. "If we get out of here, I'm going to the border city. Let's meet there if we have to split up." Then she turned to Luca. "Luca, if you ever decide to leave the Empire..." Luca cut her off, raising a hand in dismissal. "I'm not interested." Ile, standing to the side, muttered under his breath, "Border city." Luca felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. He leaned against the wall, pressing a hand to his forehead. "I'm exhausted. Deciding to help Ile might have been a mistake made in the heat of the moment, but I can't afford to rest now. I need to think about how I'll report this once everything is over." His grip on the wall tightened as his thoughts continued to race. "The only silver lining is that the chief centurion likes me. As long as I remain in his good graces, I can continue spying on Kinuan. Ile and Lillian are just a trainee and a noble. They aren't special. He won't ask too many questions." As they walked, Luca spotted a door at the end of the tunnel. His eyes narrowed as they neared it. Turning back to Ile, he spoke with a warning tone. "Ile, prepare yourself. If the machine isn't there, it's over." Ile remained silent, but his expression hardened with determination. Luca pressed the button to open the door. The moment he did, something felt off. A strange sensation crawled up his spine. His instinct screamed at him, and his heart pounded. "Huh, what is this bad feeling?" His pupils dilated. "I need to figure out the source of my distress right now." As the door slid open, a sudden light flooded the tunnel. Luca's breath hitched. His eyes widened in shock. It's not strange that it's bright inside. The fortress activation must have turned on all the lights, but something isn't right. He squeezed his eyes shut, blocking out all other senses, focusing solely on scent. The moment he did, his stomach dropped. "The first thing I smell is fresh blood. After that, the scent of oil and iron follows." His jaw clenched. "I don't smell any signs of a human presence." That means... A golden light flickered in Luca's vision as he stepped inside. Then he saw them, standing in formation, 4 Imperial guards, fully armored. Luca's breath caught in his throat. His body went rigid with horror and disbelief. It's over. His mind spiraled. I'd need to risk death just to take down a single unarmed Imperial guard, but 4 in full armor. His gaze darted toward Lillian. The worst-case scenario would be if they choose to capture Lillian alive. She isn't trained like me or Ile. She'll break under torture. If that happens, the higher-ups will learn everything. Our betrayal, our treason. Luca's fingers twitched toward his weapon, his mind racing through possible solutions. I thought I could get them out, that I could help Ile live the life he wanted, but that was just a foolish fantasy. His blood ran cold as the realization set in. There's only one way out. We need to kill Lillian immediately. Even if they suspect us, we can spin a story. The higher-ups will accept, but his stomach churned at the next thought. But will Ile be able to keep his calm after witnessing Lillian's death? If he attacks the Imperial Guard, we're completely screwed. One of the Imperial Guards stirred. He turned slightly, his visor shifting before his gaze landed on Luca. The other 3 followed. Luca's breath hitched. Our eyes met. Time was slipping away. The longer I hesitate, the more suspicious I look. His grip tightened. It's now or never. Luca turned his face instinctively, preparing to act, but before he could move, a gunshot rang out. A single bullet pierced through Lillian's head. Blood and tears spilled down her face as her body jerked, then collapsed lifelessly to the ground. Luca's breath caught in his throat. His eyes widened in shock. Smoke curled from the barrel of the gun that had fired the fatal shot. The shooter stood just behind him. It was Ile. The Imperial guards turned toward the scene, their armored forms unmoving as they processed what had just occurred. Luca still frozen at the doorway. Then one of them stepped forward. Lillian's lifeless body lay at their feet. A crimson pool expanded beneath her, soaking the cold ground. One of the Imperial guards, his tone laced with suspicion, finally spoke. "Luca, Ile, why did you fire just now?" Ile lowered his pistol. His face was unreadable. "I executed a hostage that we didn't need anymore." The guards exchanged glances before one of them took another step forward. "Why did you bring a rebel all the way here?" His voice was sharp, authoritative. "I'll report everything that has happened so far. I will decide what to do after that." Ile's fingers twitched slightly as he straightened his posture. "Understood?" Luca stood motionless. His face remained cast downward, his expression unreadable. He couldn't understand it. Two of the armored guards moved past him without hesitation, their heavy boots thudding against the ground, indifferent, unbothered. Luca's fingers curled into fists at his sides. His breath grew uneven as the Imperial guards surrounded Ile. Luca's gaze drifted toward Lillian's body. One of the guards stepped forward carelessly, his heavy boot pinning down her hair against the blood-soaked ground. And with that, this chapter ends. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Support this channel by liking this video and subscribing the channel. And if you want me to recap another manhwa or manga, write its name on comment section. And if you want to know what happened in previous chapter, you can watch them in this YouTube channel.